Welcome to Todd Wetstein Photography. Today we're going to learn about exposure compensation. If you just got done watching my video on how to read a histogram, this is the next one that you should see. Okay, in our histogram video, we learned that when our graph is climbing that right edge, that we need to darken our photo. Or if we need to brighten it, we can make an adjustment. Okay, the way we make that adjustment, I shoot a Nikon camera. What we're going to do is we're going to learn about exposure compensation, and today we are going to be learning about this dial right here that my finger is on, the flag that looks like a plus and a minus. Okay, that's called exposure compensation. Now, if you're shooting a high-end Canon, this is complicated. You've got a serrated edge to the right of your LCD, a wheel that's got a serrated edge. And if you turn it one direction, it's positive. If you turn it another direction, it's negative. Okay? And now what you have to do, say you're looking at your photo. Okay, my photo's too bright, so I need to darken it. Okay, before I can make an adjustment, I'm looking at my photo because I hit this playback button to show my last photo. I can't make an adjustment yet until I push my shutter button down halfway. Now I've taken my camera out of playback mode and I'm in shooting mode. I can affect my next image. Okay? So, my photo's too bright. Let me back up here. Remember our command dial that I talked about in the video on the aperture priority? This command dial in aperture priority is controlling the aperture. Not in this camera here. Mine has two dials, but your Canons and most cameras are going to have one dial here on the back, and it affects your aperture. Unless we hold down our exposure compensation button. Now, as long as I keep this button pressed down, this flag button with the plus and minus, I'm affecting my exposure compensation. If my finger slips off of it, then I'm going back to affecting my aperture. Okay? I have to keep this button pushed down while I make that adjustment. If you have a Sony camera, you may have a dial on the top right behind your shutter button that has a -1, -2, +1, +2, all of that. That dial right there is your exposure compensation. Okay? Every camera's got it in a different spot. Please take a second to pinpoint it on yours. I have a Patreon channel too, and if you come over to my Patreon channel, you can support me by picking which tier, the level of commitment you want. And I do have a tier where we do one-on-one Facebook or FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, whatever. And you can hold your camera up to me and we can interact on the video and stuff. Right now, when you're just watching just a YouTube video, you have to just kind of figure out where's my exposure compensation button. They're all over the place on your cameras. But now, my Nikon here has, if I show you right here, when I push that down, that's plus 1.3. I can get back to 0. That's where your camera would shoot if you're in auto mode, okay? Now, when I do this -3, -0.3, -0.7, -1.0, -1.3, the further I go this way, the darker my image is going to get, okay? Now, at the same token, now I'm going positive 0.3, positive 0.7, 1.0 positive, okay? Now I'm making my photo brighter. And I just stopped that at 1.0 positive, positive 1.0. What that's doing is that is making your photo brighter by cutting your shutter speed in half, okay? It's slowing down your exposure. If you were shooting a 1-second photo, now you're shooting a 2-second photo. So it's allowing light to come through and hit the sensor longer. That's what's brightening your exposure. If you go -1, it's cutting the light from your photo by doubling your shutter speed, okay? If you were shooting that 1-second photo, now you're shooting at a half a second. The light doesn't hit your sensor as long, so it's not going to be as bright. That's what exposure compensation is doing. That's how it's affecting your image. It's affecting it through shutter speed. And the way it works, your camera, if you're shooting in auto mode, assumes you don't know what you're doing. So it's trying to protect you from taking an image that's either too bright or too dark. And the way it does that is there's a brain in your camera that's measuring the light reflecting off your subject at all times. So if you're skiing in Breckenridge, Colorado, and you're trying to take a picture of this mountain, that brain in your camera is screaming, hey, this is really bright. There's a lot of light reflecting off of this. I'm going to have to dull it down. Well, when you dull down your whites, you turn them gray, okay? Now, we're touring a coal mine, and we want to take a picture of a lump of coal. I don't know why, but it's just something, I thought of something black, okay? This brain in your camera is screaming, hey, it's too dark. There's no light reflecting off of this at all. I got to brighten it up. When you brighten your blacks, you turn them gray, okay? When you dull down your whites, you turn them gray. This is what your camera's doing in auto mode, you know? But in auto mode, your camera is making so many other choices, and if it doesn't choose right, it may turn your snow gray, or it may blow it out where you're losing your cloud detail, your drift detail, and your snows and stuff like that. This is going to be a big help in you, being able to make your adjustments with your exposure compensation. If you look at your histogram and you're climbing that right wall, you need to go a little bit negative with your exposure compensation. You need to subtract light because you're too bright. Okay, if you take that photo and you look at it, oh man, I need to brighten that up. Well, you just need to go positive. Okay, well, say you're climbing the right wall and you go -1, you take that photo, you're still climbing the right wall. Well, you're not stuck with that. Take another photo at -1.3. Did that take care of it? If it didn't, go 1.7. Go until it does. Okay, now exposure compensation. This will be the most used dial on your camera once you learn how to use it. When I'm out shooting sunsets, I'm not a documentarian. Okay, I'm not trying to document the scene. I'm an artist. The word photograph means to paint with light. Okay, so I'm not always trying to document what I see out there. You know, what you're doing is you want to take the light that you have and you want to use that to paint a picture that is so beautiful that everybody wants to buy it. And the way you can do that real easily is by exposure compensation. Say you got a beautiful pink sky out there. It's got like that pastelish looking pink, okay? Really pretty. Well, if you go a little bit negative with your exposure compensation, you can make that pastel look saturated. You can make those colors look wet, okay? And when you're doing that in camera, it's cool. When you do it in Photoshop, it looks like you saturated your colors in Photoshop or Lightroom. Don't do it. It's better to do it in the field, okay? And it's easy to do it. Now, sometimes I may shoot a sunset at -3.0 or something, you know. When you use this exposure compensation and you get ready to put your camera away at the end of the day, put your exposure compensation back at 0. Okay, because if I get my camera back out, there's that moose and I got my zoom lens on, and it's beautiful bull, and I shoot that, but I forgot I was at -3.0 the night before, and I got this moose standing against all the trees, the spruce and stuff like that. Well, my LCD is going to be black. You know, I didn't get that moose because I shot it too dark. If I would have put my camera away at 0, then I would have had it. Another thing that we do, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else, we finally walk up on that moose or that whitetail or that wolf or whatever, the lion, and we shoot 100 photos. And then it walks out of the scene and we start checking that LCD. That's a mistake. Take a photo, quick look, okay? You may be at -3, you may lose all those if you don't make that look. And I get caught in the moment. Boom, 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 you know, shooting all these shots, and then it's gone forever. It's walked out of my life. Can't bring it back. Can't fix this mess, you know. So by taking that one photo and a quick look, we'll save a lot of tears. I've learned my lessons the hard way. I'm Todd Wetstein, and thanks for stopping on my channel.